Pyhajärvi.
Oh, God, I didn't try. That's really good. Welcome.
Can we have the clicker, Diego?
Yeah. Good luck with the clicker.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Okay,
Yeah.
they want us to test.
Oh,
this.
better clicker.
You got somewhere? Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Ooh,
Ooh.
I like this clicker.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm not going to use this one then.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's great to have all of you here, and we are here to present the State of the Union, kind of wondering what the Union is, but let's start with who we are.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jonathan Lips. I work for Sony PlayStation, and I'm the Appium project lead.
Hey everyone, my name is Puja Jagani. I work at Browser Stack and I'm one of the tech leads at Selenium. Thank you for joining us today.
And I'll let you go and sit down and introduce myself and then welcome you all. My name is Maaret Pyha and I am one of the leads in the Selenium project and kind of got to open with the lovely crowd here today. Whenever we wonder what's the State of the Union, it really comes down to people. It comes down to people doing awesome things, and it comes down to awesome things that we somehow kind of do together. And today, in particular, we are at a special place in the sense that this is no longer just a Selenium conference, which is how I got to this community, but this is a Selenium and Appium conference. We are 3 people from 3 different locations in the world. We have Canada, India, Finland, and even preparing for a talk like this, we find the time zones and we get to know lovely, lovely people. So we really have learned that we like each other in the project, every one of us. We enjoy coming together. We enjoy solving the problems that we have. We enjoy building software under the same kind of conditions. And we enjoy the fact that we're actually here together on the same kind of agenda, and we're trying to change the world. We're trying to change the world through the standards-based approach. We're trying to change the world by bringing together browsers and mobile devices, the actual ones that our users are using, rather than anything else. And we come together with, technical aspects, the protocols, the chains, the negotiations that we have, and we come together kind of like, having those conversations. And again, I'm here to invite you to join, on any of those conversations. Talk to people here, meet people here, be part of this community. I can't do that for you, but I can swear that every single person in this conference would welcome if you opened the conversation. So talk about Selenium, talk about Appium, talk about whatever things are that come together into that union that we're building here. This is really a people thing, but people stand on many things, and we needed to choose one aspect that we're really standing on. And I have kind of like a dream that I want to use the sponsors for. I have a dream that we and the sponsors will get a standing ovation. And I want a picture of that. So can you join me here for a moment? I just want to, enjoy the fact that, we just opened this up. And I want you to remember the feeling, I want us to remember the feeling. This is the feeling that we want for the entire conference, that you will enjoy, you will get whatever you want. So let's get up and applause. It feels so weird. Sit down, please. It feels so awkward, by the way. It feels so awkward, but I had to use the opportunity. So thank you, everyone, for being here. You are really important. But the sponsors who are really, giving us these spaces, showing up one time and a time again, in enabling us to come together as a community, they are, with us with a big heart. With that said, to open the State of the Union, we want to give you some news and updates first on the 2 communities that we have, and how they're kind of contributing into the world, so giving you an overview of that. And then we want to kind of like come back together and conclude on the future themes of where we're going. And to open that one up, let's start with Selenium. Puja, take it away.
Okay. Hello, everyone. And I thank you, Maaret, for that. That was fun. I'm here to talk about all things Selenium today. So it's the 21st year of Selenium. If you don't know, we've completed 2 decades. It was 20th birthday of Selenium back in October. And I think Selenium has come a long way. And just like this picture, I like to think of Selenium as a plant that has been constantly growing, right? So if you think of a plant, the roots are deeply etched in the ground, creating a foundation. And I think Selenium has been the foundation of test automation for a very, very long time. And just how a plant grows and branches into different areas and kind of adjusting and accommodating to situations, Selenium has done that, right? It's gone from RC to version 2 to 3 to 4, making sure we have the grid and do amazing cloud interactions, adapting to BiDi, introducing Selenium Manager. So I think the project has done every amazing thing it can to manage in the ever-changing landscape of testing. But just like every plant needs a nourishing environment, I think Selenium needs that too. And I think in our case, it's the community. So it's everyone who's here, everyone who's ever contributed to the project and made it what it is today. So I think Selenium is a people-led project. It's driven by the community, for the community, and I think that's what we are today. And yeah, so I think now that I'm done giving a very philosophical viewpoint of what Selenium is, I'm going to now talk a little bit about like a fun story about how Selenium got its name. So when I was preparing for the keynote, I was Googling around. I found something on Wikipedia as to how Selenium got its name. And I just wanted to verify that story and check that with the co-creator of Selenium, that's Jason Huggins. And he's like, okay, Wikipedia is wrong. I'm going to tell you the correct story. And this is what he told me. So back in the day when he created the tool, it was called JSFT. And he received an email from Brett, the creator of Water, saying that, you know, the tool is amazing. It could compete with Mercury's tools. And Jason was pretty new back then. He was a junior developer. He had no idea what a big deal this was. And in the spirit of a dad joke, he went Googling around. And he found out that to cure mercury poisoning, you need to take selenium pills. So he sent that email back saying, if you want to fight mercury, we need to be using selenium. He was not insisting on that name. He wanted the name to be something like check engine, like a check engine light in your cars. But that joke stuck around, and that's how Selenium got its name. So yeah, that's just a fun story that I wanted to share with the group. Like I said, I think we are driven by the community. We're driven by the people. So these are a list of all the active community members who've been really supportive and contributing over the last 6 months over all our projects, be it documentation, Docker, the grid, the Selenium core bindings, the IDE. Everyone's just very happy that we have so many contributors that I couldn't fit them on one slide. I know Diego has done an excellent job trying to do that. But all I request is this is an ever-changing list, right? So we appreciate the time everyone's giving, and we welcome everyone to come contribute. I think no idea is a bad idea, and no contribution is a small contribution. So we always encourage the community to bring themselves and join us, and always contribute in the best manner possible. Moving on. So Selenium has been a protocol implementation, but then there are a lot of other projects out there in the ecosystem in different languages, using different frameworks that are either building on top of Selenium or extending Selenium in some way, or implementing a WebDriver protocol in some way and supporting standards. So these are amazing projects in different languages. Feel free to check them out. They do some really, really cool things on top of the existing project. And yeah, so it's an ecosystem that we're supportive of and building, and I'm glad to have them at least in the same corner. But I think now we have a new ecosystem that's slowly coming up. So with WebDriver BiDi, we slowly have everyone catching up to the new protocol and implementing the next big thing, and for a very valid reason. I think Selenium's all about open standards, open web, and supporting it to its core. And everyone's been very open about how they want to do that. And so I think when it comes to the BiDi ecosystem, we already have these members there. So we have Selenium, WebDriver.io, Appium. Puppeteer is now cross-browser thanks to BiDi. And to, I think, everyone's surprise, Cypress is also using BiDi for Firefox underneath. So that's the big thing that's happening. And joining this ecosystem are also the cloud vendors. You have BrowserStack, Sauce Labs, Lambda Test, everyone joining the bandwagon. So it is definitely the next big thing. And I would suggest everyone to look into it, check it out, and see what cool things it can do for you and make your lives easier, because it's being designed by an amazing set of folks, by the WC3 working group. Yeah. So now it's a quick time to give you a little update on what Selenium has been cooking for the last 6 months. We have been working very actively to make sure we're implementing BiDi in all our language bindings and keeping up with the browser vendors. So compared to how much browsers have implemented, I think Java and JavaScript are almost about 95 to 100% there. We're trying to keep up as much as the protocol that's implemented by the browsers and have that code ready to go in Selenium. We have .NET, around 80% has been implemented in .NET. Ruby is also around in the same league, where it's 70 to 75% of the protocols implemented. We have a lot of pull requests coming in. Python is something that's been worked upon actively. The work has begun, but that is a language that needs to catch up a little bit. So again, contributions are welcome. We appreciate all contributions in that direction. We also have some high-level APIs in BiDi to do really cool things. So if you do like driver.network.add request handler, you can then do network interception and a lot of cool things. So we're working on implementing and designing the high-level APIs as well. Another update is that Firefox has removed its support for CDP. So Firefox no longer supports CDP. And aligning with that, Selenium has also removed the support for Firefox CDP. So we have it for Chrome, but we no longer have it for Firefox. You'll also see some, if you've used the Grid, Grid has this amazing UI. We've made some enhancement to make it more user-friendly and performant. You can always check that out. And we're also constantly working on improvising our CI/CD pipelines that we use, so we can test faster, fail faster, and hopefully have less bugs for everyone. And that's what we've been cooking in the last 6 months. How many of you know of the Selenium Manager? Okay. How many of you use the Selenium Manager? I guess there are more people who use it, because in the last 15 versions, I think we're at Selenium 4.30. So if you've been using any of the last 15 versions, you're using Selenium Manager by default, and you probably just don't know it. It's an amazing tool developed by Bonnie. He's done great work to bring this to life. It helps you. It automatically manages your browsers and drivers. So you can start a test without even having a single browser or driver on your machine, and it will do all the work for you. There's more to it in Bonnie's talk, but Selenium Manager is a part of Selenium. It's there, it's just bundled with it. And it does all these amazing things. It makes Selenium batteries included. And that's what we have. And I really request everyone to go check it out, because it does some amazing things. And you maybe don't even need to use it with Selenium. You can use it as a standalone CLI tool in case you're just looking to manage your browsers and drivers. And it also makes it very easy to Dockerize your tests, because a lot of setup, the heavy lifting, is done by Selenium Manager. So there are some updates that have gone through in Selenium Manager as well, where there were some issues with edge serialization, which has been fixed. Additionally, Firefox nightlies are bundled in Linux with a .xz format. So we added a compressor to take care of it. So if you're going to use that, I think now that's sorted for you. And with Selenium Manager, we now support a full browser version. So if you pass in an entire browser, like the patch version, it will go pick it up for you and use it in your code base. So these are the new cool things that have happened. And we also have some improved error handling that has gone in. So Selenium 5. So let's see, what are we looking at Selenium 5? I think, like I said, we're pushing very heavily on BiDi. So we're looking to completely implement the entire BiDi protocol in Selenium in all our language bindings. Additionally, ensure that all our language bindings have the high-level API, so you can do cool, fun stuff without having to understand a lot of the protocol and just get it out of the box. Like you can listen to logs add DOM mutation handlers, do network interception, and a lot more cool things that we plan to add on. And I think with Selenium 5, we will start defaulting to BiDi. So anytime you give a WebDriver command, in the background, it'll try to use BiDi command. Just in case it's an old browser version or something is not supported, we'll have a fallback mechanism to go to the WebDriver Classic. So again, we are very high on backward compatibility, and that is something we plan to continue with our new project. The next question is, when are we doing Selenium 5? So I think back in 2013, Simon announced, and the team, they announced that they'll be releasing Selenium 3 in Christmas. They didn't mention which Christmas, and fortunately so, they delivered when they had to. And I think, I'm repeating history because that's what I think history does. So we are aiming for Selenium 5 in Christmas, but I'm not going to tell you when. So let's leave that suspense hanging and probably meet next year and see where we are at. But that is the plan we are actively working towards. So just to conclude a little bit, I think Selenium has received a lot of backlash in the past few months, a year. I think a lot of negative comments about how it's outdated, it's dead, very strong negativity that has gone through. And I know we have good citizens always fighting that with facts and numbers and valid data. So I really appreciate that's going on. But I think there's a bigger problem. I took this picture in Rotterdam. It's an elephant that's balloons are trying to lift an elephant. I think the problem we are trying to solve is a little bit like that. So test automation is a hard problem. It's like trying to lift an elephant with balloons, where we think one tool will solve it all. It'll automatically just take care of every single need you have for test automation. And I don't think that's possible. So I think it's time that we kind of change or shift our perspective a little bit. It's important to kind of understand how the tools are built, what is the core philosophy, and celebrate the efforts that go into it based on the community's effort, everyone, the time they gave, the thoughts they put in to actually make this viable. And probably start thinking, how can we do this better? We're always open to feedback. We're always open to conversation. You can always reach out on Slack and any idea how we'd like to contribute. So I would just urge everyone to then come help us. How can we make this better? And just leave you with that thought today. Thank you so much. And I'll hand it to the amazing Jonathan Lips.
Thanks, Puja. It was very exciting to hear about what's going on with the Selenium community and project. And yeah, I'll share with you all a little bit about what's happening in the Appium world. So, some time ago, we made this sort of joke about the ultimate vision of the WebDriver ecosystem as, involving more than just the web. And that was kind of Appium's original vision in sort of a small way. We were looking at kind of the next iteration of WebDriver, going from, 1 to 2 platforms, from the web platform to initially iOS, thanks to the work of Dan, who's here at the conference. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. And then to onto Android, and then more platforms. And the idea has always been, wherever there are apps, there should be standards-based automation for those apps. And so we called that idea Star Driver, referencing the clean star, which stands for anything, as you might know from wrestling with regular expressions or other things like that. So my portion of the talk here, I'm going to give some updates about kind of what we call the core part of our project, some community updates, some updates from the ecosystem, with a special mention for BiDi, because that's kind of a big deal right now, and Appium 3. So first of all, I wanted to give you a little bit of a map of how Appium is structured, because I assume that there are plenty of people in the room who, maybe have used Selenium extensively, but not Appium yet. I'm actually just curious, who's used Selenium but not Appium? Actually, not as many people as I would have expected, which is part of why we're all standing up here together, because I think increasingly our projects overlap in terms of usage quite a bit. So that's pretty cool to see. So what do we mean by core and ecosystem in the Appium world? Well, by core, we're referring to kind of the main Appium server and associated command line tools like Appium Doctor, or the facilities that we have to install Appium drivers and plugins, which work a little bit similarly to Selenium Manager, actually, now that I think about it. We have also the framework that we offer to external developers as well for building Appium drivers and plugins. It's kind of something that you can, import and use. It's not just a part of the Appium server itself, but it's there for anyone. So we consider that something that we offer as an interface. And we do, of course, support automation of a few platforms from the core team ourselves. So we've got these platform drivers, as we call them, similar to the Selenium world, that support platforms like iOS and Android, or even, for example, Mac OS desktop applications. These are drivers that are supported by the core Appium team that we maintain ourselves. Also, we maintain a handful of Appium plugins that we think are particularly useful, or that we extracted from Appium when we moved from Appium 1 to Appium 2 and introduced our plugin architecture, which I'll share a little bit more about in a second. And then, of course, we have client libraries that you use to consume the Appium API, which is basically the same set of client libraries you'd be familiar with from Selenium, with a few extensions added on. And we're increasingly trying to make those Appium extensions thin to non-existent as we work with the Selenium team to kind of merge everything we're doing in the WebDriver client world to make it easy for people to write tests against Selenium and Appium without having to worry too much about using lots of different tools. And then, of course, we have a really wonderful project called the Appium Inspector, which is a graphical way for people to interact with the Appium server and Appium drivers and find element locators and things like that. Who's used Appium Inspector? Yeah, it's a fantastic tool. The spiritual successor to another tool created by someone who will not be named. Yeah, it's always nice to have these ways of interacting with your applications visually, especially in the test authoring phase. So then by ecosystem, we mean stuff created by you, essentially, stuff that the core team has, for whatever reason, decided we don't want to support or we can't support, but which is still useful and valuable for some or many people in the community. And so we have a very big open tent with Appium. We've kind of restructured our software architecture in Appium 2, which came out almost a couple years ago now, so that people in the community could build and share their own extensions to Appium, and everyone could benefit from that. So we call that the ecosystem. It includes drivers created and supported by the wider community, plugins created and supported by the wider community, and so on. So just a note about drivers and plugins, because this plugin language you may not be familiar with if you haven't used Appium before, but it's a really, I think, kind of amazing part of Appium nowadays that helps this ecosystem flourish. So as a kind of illustration, I tried to create a little bit of a graph here using tables in the slides. Along the bottom, we have drivers. So the pieces of software that give you the ability to automate particular platforms, kind of their core implementation of the WebDriver API, finding elements and interacting with them, and so on. And these are mutually exclusive, kind of conceptually. If you're running a test on Android, you're not at the same time running it on iOS. You're always only exercising an app on one platform at a time, even though you might care about running your test on multiple platforms. But at any given time, you're just using one platform. And then kind of going vertically, we have what we call plugins in the Appium world. And plugins are bits of functionality that could, theoretically work with any platform. They're kind of, you know, they could be small, they could be big. I've picked a couple examples here that are both small and large. You know, for example, we have something we call the Images plugin. It's one of our core plugins that gives you the ability to perform image analysis on screenshots. Things like, you know, finding where a template image might exist in a screenshot, or performing matching from one screenshot to another, so you could do things like visual testing. And conceptually, the Images plugin doesn't really care what platform you're running on, right? As long as there is a screen, you can do screenshots, you can do image analysis. So you can use this Images plugin functionality with any driver. There's some other plugins that have been created by folks in our wider community who are here at the conference, like Srini and Sai, who have made this very extensive you know, device farm plugin that gives you a whole user interface for managing devices and making them accessible to Appium. And this is available via an Appium plugin install command. And of course, you can use some of these community plugins and the Images plugin that I just mentioned in conjunction with one another. They both provide functionality that augments your testing experience, and they can be combined and mixed and matched in any number of ways. So this map here on the screen, which is shown in 2 dimensions, is actually more of an n-dimensional space, because plugins, as long as they don't inherently conflict with one another, can be combined. So you can get a lot of interesting functionality just by opting into the Appium ecosystem. And of course, we hope that the ecosystem continues to grow with more people writing drivers and plugins in this way. So just wanted to highlight that aspect of Appium, because I think it's one of our, you know, most special features, because it enables everyone to contribute to the ecosystem in a very easy way just by consuming some very simple code interfaces that we provide. Okay, so now let's move to some updates of our core software, the server and so on. We actually had a virtual Appium conference just about 6 months ago. Anyone sign on for that? Watch, okay, a few people, great. So I'm going to give updates basically since then, so it's not kind of a whole year's worth of updates. One fun thing is that we have Appium 3 in early beta right now, so I'll have a slide on that later, but you can check out Appium 3 and give us some feedback on that. We also have continued to add support for the BiDi protocol and some of the standard BiDi commands that are a part of the WebDriver BiDi spec, because, you know, as you'll keep hearing, BiDi is the future. Make sure you learn about it and understand how to use it. And the projects will, of course, try and make that transition as seamless as possible for you all. We've got a new core plugin that we've just released called the Storage plugin. It kind of solves the problem that you sometimes have when automating mobile apps of, you know, needing to, let's say, install an application that's not already present on the device. And this application might be several gigabytes in size and too big to send over HTTP as a base 64, you know, encoded IPA file or whatever. So we now have this plugin you can opt into using that lets you kind of store files, stream files to the Appium server host and then reference them in your tests so that devices have access to them, things like that. We, you know, again, in the spirit of collaboration with the Selenium community, we heard people say that the Appium inspector and the Selenium grid didn't work nicely together, so we put some work into that, and now you can, you know, launch sessions on your Selenium grid from the Appium inspector without issues, which is really cool. Selenium grid, obviously, a great way to, you know, run a grid of devices and have tests attached to them, and works just fine with Appium as you'd expect. If you use our Android driver, you might be happy to know that we've enabled discovery of many new properties that Android also has exposed for accessibility purposes on Elements. So you can get things like error states, and I think there's maybe 17 new properties, and I don't remember what they all are, but it's all documented. You can check that out. If you do any kind of Mac desktop app automation, we've got something called the Mac 2 driver, because it's the second one, I guess. And we've added some new features to that as well, which you should check out. Appium Inspector, as I mentioned before, really great tool. One of the great things about it is that it's written using web technologies. And we release it as a desktop app, kind of wrapped in an Electron interface. But it's also accessible via your web browser. There's a hosted version of it, and soon it will be able to be bundled into your Appium server as an Appium plugin. So you could just install the Appium Inspector plugin, and then when you launch your Appium server, you can just go to a local URL and connect to a locally hosted version of the inspector, so you don't have to download a multiple hundred megabyte file, because Electron is big. So this will be a way to make it available wherever you have your Appium server running, which is kind of cool. And then something we've heard a lot from people is that when they run their tests, you know, they're using sometimes credentials that are sensitive, which you should never do. But some people refuse to heed that advice, or, you know, for whatever reason can't, or maybe they're using Appium for some, you know, post-deployment testing or something like that. Anyway, we've caved on this, and we've decided that, you know, we will provide a feature that lets you kind of mask potentially sensitive values in log output, so that you don't have to worry if someone on your team accidentally uses a real password or a real API key somewhere, and then those logs are on a cloud service, and then the cloud service gets compromised, which obviously would never happen to any of our favorite cloud services, but, you know, it's good to be safe. All right, so let's talk a little bit about ecosystem as well. Not as much to report here in the last 6 months. One cool thing is the list of Appium client libraries keeps growing. If you like Swift, you can now write your Appium tests in Swift. Does anyone use Swift? Oh, wow, okay, that's cool. But you don't use XCUI test directly? The Appium, or the iOS ecosystem? Don't tell Apple if you don't. They'll be very sad. But this is cool. Maybe one of you actually wrote this. I don't know how many people in the world use Swift and Appium, but I think it's very exciting. I think there should be an Appium client in every language, obviously. And we've had some, you know, significant updates to the device farm plugin that I mentioned earlier, from some of the workshop instructors from yesterday. You can now, you know, control devices manually, stream logs from your devices or from the Appium server. And they have informed me that they have provided an alternative strategy for managing WebDriver agent to what Appium does, and that it's better, which is great. You know, maybe we can bring that into Appium somehow. We'll see. We'll have to talk about that. And then they've also let me know that if you're into LLMs and you like AI and you like using AI and LLMs at the same time, and, you know, just getting all up in that amazing hype that there is about all that stuff, you'll appreciate that there is something called a model context protocol server that's being developed for use with Appium for iOS and Android. The idea is basically that it makes it easier to plug into your LLM-based workflows and have Appium kind of facilitate on the agent side of things. So those are some of the ecosystem updates. Now let's talk a little bit about how you are involved in the ecosystem. Hopefully you are. I think it's exciting, again, that anybody can contribute to the Appium ecosystem. You know, apart from, you know, building plugins and things like that, there's just so much that you can do. You know, I think if you have a platform that you think Appium should be able to automate, it's very easy to consume Appium's driver interface and build Appium support for a new platform. And in fact, I know of a number of companies that have done this internally for their own, you know, bespoke platform, and haven't released it to the wider world because, you know, maybe no one else uses that platform. But it's still something that they were able to do to, you know, achieve kind of sensible automation of their own platform. So it's not just, the ecosystem is not just for people who want to make everything open source. The ecosystem is for people who want to use internal tools or who want to build stuff to sell to people. I mean, we're not going to restrict the kinds of things that you do with what you create. So yeah, it's just kind of a call to say if you've ever had an idea for how to extend Appium or something that you think would be cool as an integration with Appium, it's very easy to build that as a plugin, for example. And we have documentation on this that tells you how to build drivers and plugins that I think is kind of halfway decent. People have actually used without talking to us and built plugins and said, here they are. And we're like, oh, wow, that's cool. You just use our documentation. Amazing. So that's that call to action there. A little bit about what's happening in our community. One exciting thing is that our documentation site, which I just mentioned as being really pretty good actually, is now going to be hopefully a little bit better in a variety of languages other than English. We had kind of English and Chinese, but we've migrated our translation efforts to Crowdin, which is a great kind of crowd-based translation tool we've been using for the Appium Inspector for a long time, and it's part of why the Appium Inspector is available in so many languages. And now we're opening up our entire set of documentation to crowdsourced translation as well. So if you have a language that you think the Appium documentation should be available in, we welcome your support. It's very easy to use Crowdin to just kind of do translations there in their interface, and it gets synced and published on our end using a bunch of GitHub actions. It's all pretty slick. Finally, we have, for the past, I want to say almost year, been benefiting from the support of some financial and development sponsors that I wanted to call out here with a big thank you. And this has enabled a new kind of compensation scheme for the Appium project and the Appium community that has allowed us to actually start paying people who contribute work to Appium, who make pull requests. Basically, every pull request we review that's not from the core team, we kind of assign a rough size bucket to it, and then we have an open document in our governance model that specifies kind of payout values based on the size of contributions. And every month, I make a big spreadsheet of who's contributed and go and offer people money. And a lot of times people accept that money. And we've been fortunate to have the ability to do this because of these financial sponsors. So this is exciting. I think it's always tricky to figure out how to incentivize open source work, and everybody loves cash. So I think we'll do this as long as we can. Yeah. Okay, moving right along. I think you'll hear a lot about BiDi at this conference. Appium has supported BiDi for some time, and kind of the cool thing about Appium is we now allow any of our drivers or plugins to extend the BiDi protocol with custom commands, which is something that our drivers and plugins do quite a lot with the regular WebDriver protocol. They can now do it with BiDi. And we're looking into how we can, bring BiDi into some of our, mobile-specific or other platform-specific drivers. For example, we've extended the BiDi logging command, so you can now stream logs from your iOS device or whatever, in addition to logs from the Appium server itself. So you can do things with those logs. And we've created a kind of event that you can listen to using the BiDi protocol so that you know when your driver might change context from web to native, which your tests might care about listening to in some way. So these are kind of small examples. We're sort of testing the waters, trying to figure out how we can use BiDi to create a better experience. Lastly, a few notes about Appium 3. This is a very small evolution compared to what Appium 2 was. We're kind of moving away from major versions, meaning we're going to do some big, marketing thing with lots of features and trying to have it reflect a little more of the principles of semantic versioning. We don't want to gate new features on when we're going to release a new major version. We want to give you new features as soon as we code them, because why withhold that goodness from you? So the idea behind Appium 3 is mostly to make some of the breaking changes that we didn't want to make in Appium 2, but that we began the deprecation period for different things. So there's not going to be a whole lot of kind of user-facing interesting items in Appium 3. In addition, the release cycle for Appium drivers and plugins is kind of on their own at this point anyway. It's not tied to the release cycle of the Appium server. So, keep an eye out for new features in the drivers themselves. You don't need, Appium 3 is not going to have new Android features or new iOS features. Those are kind of the domain of the iOS and Android drivers at this point. What else is important here? One cool thing that we're adding, though, is the ability for you to, it's a bit kind of like reflection for the Appium server. There's going to be an endpoint that lets you ask, what are all the commands that are supported by this driver that I'm currently using, or this plugin that I'm currently using, including custom commands that they might have added. So this will enable things like Appium Inspector to build user interfaces for drivers that it doesn't know about, for internal plugins that it doesn't know about. So it'll open up some cool user experience. And I think that's all that I need to mention about Appium 3 for the time being. We're going to make a few small breaking changes you probably don't need to worry about. If you want to give it a go, you can already install Appium at beta using npm. So with that, want to close with a few thoughts from all of us together about the future of our two projects. So as we said at the beginning, we like each other a lot, and we plan to keep doing that. I think we want to share now a few things that we have in mind that we're going to do together to keep moving that relationship collaboration forward. One is, of course, to kind of unify and rally around BiDi as the next and improved version of the protocol. This is going to involve a lot of work for both projects. It's going to involve work for cloud vendors, for lots of folks in the ecosystem. But we think this is very much the way forward, and it will solve a lot of long-standing problems with the architecture from the past. So that's something that we intend to do together.
Yeah, definitely going from kind of BiDi then to our ecosystem. There's a big change coming with the size of the ecosystem, because BiDi kind of makes Selenium one part, Appium one part, Cypress one part. We've seen pull requests in Playwright for BiDi. So I kind of personally at least feel like the ecosystem is now, everything is kind of centered around this BiDi, which is the center and heart of Selenium. And definitely all of our ecosystem projects kind of building on top of all the components that we've talked about today is kind of a big thing. So whatever new you want to contribute, that's the ecosystem that we're building, and we're building it together.
Yeah, and I think extending further on that, Appium and Selenium have been very close in this ecosystem. They always like to collaborate and think of each other in everything they do. So every time we make a change, we're always wondering how will it impact Appium in all of our discussions, and that's what we've been doing the last few days. And even the lovely example that Jonathan gave, that when they were doing Appium Inspector, they did prioritize how it works with Selenium Grid. So I think the projects are always working in close harmony and seeing what's better for the community.
And finally, the ways that we plan on working together is continuing to be allies and kind of showing up for one another. So that's definitely something that we keep doing.
And speaking of the wider context of challenges we all face, we have to acknowledge that we're in a complicated world with a lot going on, a lot of new technologies popping up, and we always have to be evaluating what does Selenium mean in the current context, what does Appium mean in the current context, how can we continue to push forward our vision, which we believe is good, in a changing world. So, as one example, Obviously, generative AI is a huge new technological paradigm that's receiving a lot of attention, and there's a lot of heat and a lot of light. You know, maybe not always a lot of nuanced reasoning when it comes to the role of AI in test authoring and test development. So I think we have to critically and wisely, determine the suitability of this in our ecosystem for the benefit of everyone, and obviously keeping the focus on what the goal of the projects are and what we do best.
And with AI kind of as the changing foundation, we get to have even increasing amounts of things where the change that we've introduced, like BiDi, is going to lead into generating some of the things that are outdated maybe in the instructions that we're getting. So there's definitely, outdated, older information that's going to be out there, but there's also a lot of misinformation that we keep on fighting. So maybe join us on that front in the social media, in letting people know that no, Selenium is not dead, no, it's not dying, it's actually growing, it's getting bigger, and it's all kinds of things that we're working on together as quite a large community, which also then obviously means why there's multiple people from the community on this stage, and even we're missing out on so many of our great people.
Yeah, and I think aligning with that, we're also constantly fighting misconceptions. Again, when they think Selenium is outdated or even Appium is outdated, and that's not the case, right? We adapted BiDi early on, both projects did, and then we have Cypress following us. Playwright has a pull request. So we are leading the path to open web and standards, and there are a bunch of tools that are following us, and soon it'll be a leveling field. So I think we're in a constant battle to fight the misconceptions and deliver the right information for our users to then choose what fits them the best. But yeah, we'll constantly strive to do that.
And, of course, I think we're all aware that we are in a world where there's a lot of marketing that goes on, and sometimes is light on facts. And so I think it, behooves everyone to, really critically examine the various tools and options that are out there, and as we've said, fight the good fight on social media. Follow David Burns if you haven't, because that's his favorite thing to do, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, and obviously, because we are an ecosystem, anything built on top of Selenium might be named something else, part of the marketing things. Personally, at least, I get almost like daily notes on, we have this great tool, it's a DSL on top of Selenium, and some AI on top of it, and. So it's always kind of building on top of these things that we build as building blocks for the community. But there's a lot of these commercial tools, and us kind of like trying to navigate what is really core and what's different, what's the same. These kind of communities where we look at the kind of batteries included was the first that you used. Kind of the batteries that enable the bigger things is very core to our learning.
And with that, we thank you for coming to the conference. Yeah.
Thank you.